Hi there. Welcome to the Travis and Andy podcast, Carrying the One. I'm Travis.
And I'm Andy. So, in this episode of the Travis and Andy podcast, we break down the facts behind ongoing government shutdown, separating political spin from reality, featuring clips from the White House Secretary, Senator John Kennedy. So, we're going to hear voices on both sides of the aisle. We analyze what each party is saying, what's actually happening behind closed doors, and how everyday Americans are being affected. Join us as we search for the truth beneath politics and explore what real leadership looks like in times of division. So let's talk about what exactly is a government shutdown. I don't think, a lot of people have a clear understanding of this. So the definition of it is when Congress fails to pass appropriations or a continuing resolution before a deadline. So agencies must cease non-essential operations. So we have a government shutdown that we're in right now. It started on October 1st. It's the second longest shutdown in U.S. history. The first shutdown, believe it or not, was actually Donald Trump in his first presidency that lasted 35 days. So this one's well on track to do that. So, let's like really dig in and find out what's happening and why this shutdown is taking so long is what we're going to get into today. What happens during a shutdown is agencies with no approval funding must cease discretionary activities, those funded by annual appropriations. This means many non-essential services stop. So federal employees fall into two main categories: accepted employees, those who work is considered essential, like air traffic controllers, military, some law enforcement. They must continue working, but they may not be paid until Congress acts. And then non-accepted or furloughed, those are employees whose agencies must shut down or pause operations. They are sent home without any pay until funding is restored. Kind of like when we broke down in our video and she was talking about NOAA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a furloughed program. So I just want you guys to know that if you are worried about the government shutdown currently, you're not going to lose the mandatory spending like Social Security or Medicare. Those programs are funded via trust funds or there are specific authorizations that continue because they do not rely solely on the annual appropriations that lapse. So those, you will still continue to see your Social Security check. You will still continue to see your Medicare insurance be covered. I think John Kennedy really does a really good one on this. He breaks it down. This guy's funny, man.
So he explains the 60 votes to open the government. Republicans have 53 seats.
Yep. So there's a lot of debate right now. I'm sure you've seen it out in the stories that this is a Schumer shutdown, meaning it's a Democrat shutdown, or it's a Republican shutdown because they have the House. They own almost all the seats. But in reality, in order to pass anything through Congress, you have to have 60 votes, which means that we would need 7 Democrats to vote for anything to pass. And they're not wanting.
So they will just refuse to vote on anything regardless.
Correct.
Let's get into it.
Mr. President.
The senator from Louisiana.
Well, Mr. President, it looks like we're going to have a shutdown. What do I mean by a shutdown? Well, we can't keep government open without a budget. And tonight at midnight, our current budget expires unless we vote to maintain the status quo and continue the current budget as we negotiate a new one. Many of my Democratic friends say, well, what's the problem? The Republicans are in charge. The president's a Republican, and the Republicans have a majority in the Senate, and the Republicans have a majority in the House. What's the problem? They know what the problem is. We can't pass a budget. We can't keep government open just with Republican votes here in the Senate. We only have 53 Republicans. We need 7 Democrats to join with us. So for my Democratic colleagues to say, well, the Republicans are in charge and they don't need us, they know that's not accurate. And that's what's going on. Now, we've had a few shutdowns before, and every shutdown is different, but most shutdowns are a combination of both policy and politics in varying degrees. What the Democrats are saying to us is that we're going to close government unless you Republicans agree to make it bigger. We don't want the status quo. We want you to commit to spending $1.5 trillion more than you're spending now. And we, the Democrats are saying, are going to tell you how to spend it. First, they want us to repeal all of the Medicaid reforms that we did in the reconciliation bill. Some call it the One Big Beautiful Bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill would not reduce Medicaid. In fact, it would go up about 2% every year as a result of our bill. But it would say to people who are on Medicaid, who aren't eligible for Medicaid, that you're not going to get Medicaid anymore. Dual eligibles, people who sign up in Louisiana and Mississippi, that's fraud. Under our bill, they would be thrown off. The Democrats want them put back on. Under our changes in the One Big Beautiful Bill that the Democrats want us to reverse, you would have to satisfy certain income levels to be on Medicaid. The law says if you make too much money, you can't get Medicaid because Medicaid is for the poor. In my state, we have found people through audits making $120,000 a year on Medicaid. So our bill, which the Democrats want us to repeal after just passing it, would say to those people that if you don't meet the income limits, you can't get Medicaid. So that's the first demand of the Democrats. Take out all the reforms that we made to Medicaid in the reconciliation bill and throw them out the window. Number two, they want to extend the Obamacare subsidies. What does that mean? Well, first let me say Obamacare was a mistake, and we know that now. When President Obama passed Obamacare, we were told that our lives would be better. Our lives have been worse. We were told that it would make health insurance more accessible and more affordable. It's done neither. On the non-Medicaid part of Obamacare, we've got, 25 million Americans who are accessing it. And for the most part, about 90% of them are low-income Americans. But the rest are making huge sums of money. Some are making $160,000 a year getting Obamacare subsidized by taxpayers. And that's not the way it was supposed to be. How did we get here? Well, it's simple. During the pandemic, when people were being laid off or losing their jobs or couldn't work, President Biden rammed through a bill to enlarge the subsidies. He took the cap off the amount that you needed to earn in order to get Obamacare. And those subsidies at the end of this year are about to run out. Now, the Republicans have said, we'll sit down with our Democratic friends and talk about how to extend them, but we want to reform the program because it's not right that people making $125,000, $150,000, $250,000, $200,000 a year are getting their health insurance subsidized by the federal government. That's bone deep down to the mayor stupid.
That's like a lot of income to be having to also qualify for Medicaid or Obamacare or another healthcare plan. That's far more than I make.
I'll remind you too, like if I'm going to be devil's advocate, this is 10% of the population that's there. But look at how the stories spin this type of stuff. This is like so out of place. Like when we went to that No Kings protest, people were telling us that Trump is cutting health insurance, cutting it.
Yeah.
Like, and they're not. I love Senator John Kennedy. Like he's not only like I find him humorous, but I fact checked everything and it's accurate. He doesn't spit anything that's like false or exaggerated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I really, really love where he goes with this because here the left is saying like all these things about how it's going to impact. And they do have a really good point that's coming soon that we're going to get into. But they're basically saying that if we don't extend the pandemic funding for the Affordable Care Act, which is Obamacare.
Yeah, the enlarged subsidies, and
Yeah.
those are made under Obama's administration, correct?
No. So Obama created Obamacare, which is the
Right.
Affordable Care Act, right? Now, when he created that, it's still ongoing right now. But the thing is that when the pandemic hit, which unfortunately was under Biden's term, right? And Biden enlarged, like he was talking about, the subsidies so that he removed the income gap so people
Right.
could get on it. Now, all the Republicans are trying to say here is we're going to go back to pre-pandemic policy for the Affordable Care Act. That's
Yeah,
it.
so basically all they want to do is make a lateral move, and it would appear that in the Senate right now that there's purposeful opposition is what I would call it.
Right.
Is voting in a way, in a manner as such to get something out of it, or basically just to be opposition in general. They're
Right.
They either want to just specifically be in the way, or they want to use it as a leverage to again get something else that they want in the bill. My biggest question to them on the side, on the more liberal side, is where do they see justice in letting people manipulate the system and then still being able to constantly get back on it? Like he's saying in the beginning, they're drawing in multiple states large amounts with a large income, and they're getting away with it, and they're saying we'll just keep letting them just.
So I'll tell you why. The reason why is, so if I'm on the side of the Liberal Party or the Democratic Party, there's been independent research that's come out that said that if we remove this, right, if we go back to pre-pandemic policy for the ACA, then what's going to happen is insurance premiums are going to double. Now, I don't know where they're pulling the data for this or how they're analyzing this or assessing it, but it's a very real concern that people won't be able to afford health insurance any longer if they do this. So it raises a really big question is then why was it so popular before?
Right.
Before we even had how was it affordable then? What makes it now not affordable?
And like
You know
I said,
what mean?
it's literally a lateral move. They're like, okay, let's just go back to where we were.
We're not in COVID anymore.
Right.
You know what? It makes sense to me.
Let's
So-
watch the rest of this real quickly.
Mr. Schumer and his colleagues have said, nope, we will shut government down unless you agree automatically to extend these subsidies, which were passed during the pandemic, after the pandemic is over, permanently. And that's just some of my colleagues' demands. I mean, you need an Excel spreadsheet to be able to follow their demands. Their demands to keep government open, you stack them here, you could stand on them and paint the ceiling. And that's not much of an exaggeration. And when Senator Schumer announced these demands, that's when I knew. Because my colleagues, my Democratic colleagues, are very smart people. And Senator Schumer is a smart person. And he knew when he announced these demands that I could tell he wasn't serious. He knew they were unserious. And he knew that neither the president nor the other members of Congress were going to accept them. And you know what? Many Democrats know they're unreasonable as well. So that's why I say the policy part of this makes absolutely no sense. And that's because this isn't about policy. This shutdown is about politics. And there is a wing of the Democratic Party, I call it the socialist wing. Some less charitable people call it the loon wing of the Democratic Party. And they are in charge right now. And the non-loon, non-socialist Democrats are scared to death of them. And this particular wing of the Democratic Party that's in the ascendancy, what do they believe? They try to out-weird each other all the time. They think our kids should be able to change genders back and forth at recess. Kids. And if it's their preference, should be able to undergo sex change operations while minors paid by you, the taxpayers. They believe that. They believe in open borders. They believe that if you support the law, which says you have to be vetted to come into our country, if you support the law, you're a racist. Mm-hmm. I think if you support the law, you're being prudent. But they believe in open borders. And my Democratic friends are about to elect a new mayor in New York City who is a member of the Loon Wing. He's a self-avowed socialist. He has said if the Prime Minister of Israel comes to New York City, he will have him arrested.
Oh my God!
But this is not the majority of Democrats that believe this. I don't think that for a second. And I know many of my Democratic colleagues here don't believe that. But the Loon Wing,
You think Gavin Newsom's in there?
Well, 100%. I mean, have you looked at Gavin Newsom's posts, dude?
Yeah.
They're so anti-Trump.
There's
so much divide.
He's got a lot of the
now.
hatred. It's like you almost see like a divide, but it's on that side. So it's like there's the left, and then the very far left are almost two different parties that are more in alignment than they would be with like a Republican, but we're kind of our side.
Right.
We have our extremists, but it's like not enough to have like its own wing of, you know what I mean?
Well, that might not be true. I mean, there might be an extremist right wing. You know, that's certainly
they would call that the MAGA wing. That's what they.
No, the left would call it Nazis.
Yeah.
And fascists.
Fascist Nazis. Yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing, though, right? I mean, I love this guy. This guy is like, he would be so good. He's just like the issues that we're like going through right now. Like, if you looked at these bills, like, I wouldn't have a single clue how to read them. He just explains it so simplified, like, and just puts it into focus on like what's going on, because he's in Congress. He's able to see these things, and I love that, dude. And it's just disheartening because it's.
And what's his position?
He's a senator for Louisiana. He's a Republican senator. So, but I like it because he doesn't character assassinate. You know what I mean? He might call it the loop, but he's getting to very good points. You know what I mean? He's saying that there's not all Democrats are bad. He's got friends that are Democrats, but the thing is that there's some like Schumer and other people that are just pushing these radicalized idea. And I'm very much for the current policies. Like I was debating this with people using our Facebook channel on ACLU, and I did it in a very good way. I never got any negative feedback, but they came out with a post that was, they were highlighting how bad it is that Trump is ending gender affirming care, and they were trying to frame it in a way that youth that are trans are no longer getting care. That's not true. Youth that are trans are still getting all the same care that they normally would. They're just not getting coverage for sex changes or hormonal treatments that change them, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At least not by taxpayer dollars. You know what I mean? That's showing that our government is now supporting those types of transitions.
There's two lines. There's the money line, and then there's the moral line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's hard not to get convoluted between the two, but let's bear in mind they're two very different things.
They are two very different
There's always where
things.
the money's going, and then there's the morality of should we be doing it anyway. You know, the same could be said with abortion and that whole thing that goes on there.
Very true, very true. So when we think about that moral line, though, imagine if the government supports policies, though, that say that it is morally acceptable to undergo sex changes as a minor. You know what I mean?
That's exactly
then
right.
that makes it more acceptable in the public eye to do those types of things. You know what I mean? And
Alcohol and cigarettes are both great examples of that. Once it became morally acceptable, then it became more prominent, to where it was just a normal thing. You know?
Look at marijuana now.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's
exactly
a case in point right there.
Yeah, the stigma, the nasty stigma gets taken away from it, and then its popularity tends to boom.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're afraid of, dude. You know, at least that's what I'm afraid of. I don't feel like that should be something that is normalized. It's from a social worker point of view. I don't think that I should be changing my body, and especially at a young age where my brain isn't fully developed, to feel better about myself. I think I should look internally first to feel better about myself before I come to that decision that I need to make an external change.
You know what I did want to look up? You hear them constantly talking, and liberals or left wings, talking about the suicide rates, that because they weren't offered gender affirming care, or that's their biggest go-to is that they're going to all kill themselves. And I'm curious to see those numbers with, childhood suicide, which is a terrible statistic to have to look up at all. But if it is at all decreased due to these policies that allow these cares, and in those states, if that rate has gone up or down, and actually get the fundamental numbers, I really would like to know.
Sure. Yeah, no, that would be a good discussion too. And the thing is like, I look at it like this, though. Is changing sex at that young of an age the answer, though? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can there be more funding allocated for mental health services to help people kind of cope with those things or gain more awareness, rather than allowing, our taxpayer dollars to go for and make it, publicly acceptable to do this type of stuff? I mean, that sounds super radical. But if I go and tell people that it sounds radical, I'm the racist. When did we get to this point in history where all of a sudden it's like, now I'm being judged because I think it's wrong for children to go through gender affirming care? Like,
you can literally say something nice, and because you didn't say it to who or what they wanted, it can flip on you this quickly. It can be as, I'm sorry he lost his life. He had a family that he left behind. All it takes is saying something that kind to be called a Nazi and a fascist. How can you take something so kind, and it's just meant to be nice and sweet and reminiscent, and turn it on me to be something so hateful? And you think it's the same thing. I'm a Nazi fascist, and I use my, what was the one? I used my patriotism for racism.
right? I mean, I don't really get that, but if that makes me that in their eyes, then fine. Like, I'm going to stand firm in my values. I think Charlie Kirk did a really wonderful job. This is where he was kind of highlighting too. You know what I mean? He would go out there, and there was one girl, I remember this video very clearly, where she was so confused. She had gone through a gender change at a young age as a minor and regretted it, and Charlie opened up his heart. I think it causes a lot more confusion than too, and it certainly creates confusion for people that aren't considered trans or non-binary, because we don't know how to interact with that. And why do we have to have education on that? You know what I mean? It's a whole weird issue that's out there right now. And it's not to say I don't support people and don't love people that are transgender. That's definitely not the case. I just don't like how it's being completely normalized now.
Yeah, the biggest problem is it goes down to the root of the schools and using it. They get in young and they manipulate them into thinking it's normal, and they normalize it, and then it's not out of the ordinary to see a 37-year-old man in a dress in a girl's bathroom, which should be. It should look weird because it's out of the ordinary.
It's out of the ordinary. I think here's the point that I come to. I think we as a society should always accept those people, but we shouldn't have to feel like that type of lifestyle is normal, right? That we have to feel like that's just normal behavior, normal things to do. It's definitely abnormal right now still, even though this is a huge movement, but I could still accept that person. I shouldn't get fined if I own a business and I don't allow that person to use the wrong bathroom.
Yeah.
I don't think.
No.
Right? I mean, there has to be some set of traditional normalcy that's driven, and our government plays a large part in that.
Again, it's one of those things that I don't see how it hurts one way, only the other. And it's the way that they're trying to get it set up to where those things are able to be used, able to be taken advantage of by people with lesser intentions, and on both sides we can admit that they exist.
And the loon wing is mad at many of my Democratic colleagues in the Senate. They shouldn't be, but they are. And therefore, many of my Democratic colleagues in the Senate are scared of the loon wing, and they want the loon wing to love them. The loon wing will never love them. They're better off doing the right thing, and they know what the right thing to do is. But that's why I say this is a political decision, and that's why we're going to shut government down. Now, once you shut government down, unless you're prepared to leave it shut down permanently, and maybe my Democratic colleagues are, but I don't think so. I still, maybe I'm naive, but I still think too many of my Democratic colleagues in the Senate know better. Once you shut the government down, you got to get back open. How are they going to get it back open? We're not going to agree to their demands. $1.5 trillion. Every time we do a shutdown, it scares the living daylights out of the American people, especially our elderly. It breaks my heart. All of us get phone calls from folks scared to death. They're not going to get their Social Security check, or they're not going to be able to see their doctor, and it just breaks my heart. So I want to give them a little bit of assurance. During the shutdown, the executive branch will be in charge, and the Trump administration is not going to do anything to hurt our elderly. I want to assure them of that. If you're receiving a Social Security check or Medicare or Medicaid or a veteran's disability, your checks are going to continue. We will make sure of that. Trump administration will make sure of that. Government may be shut down, but essential workers will still be there to make sure those checks are sent out. If you're hungry and you don't have the money to eat, we're not going to let you starve to death. The administration is going to continue payments. We call it, some people call it SNAP. I call it food stamps.
So the funding is what gets cut out when the government shuts down. That makes to where there's non-essentials. Those non-essentials are what goes first. He's here promising that in that funding that they are still have, they're gonna pay the Social Security, the SSI, the SNAP, EBT. Right?
And that's
Is
what's
that correct?
being disputed right now is, are the SNAP benefits going to continue? I mean, Katie Hobbs of Arizona, she's already, propositioned this to the president, and she's not feeling confident that they're going to get funding to continue that. And today, being November 1st, will be the first day for some people that their SNAP benefits hit. So, that's to be determined right now if that's going to continue. And there's a lot of controversy, and both sides are kind of blaming on either side right now.
Gotcha.
But here's the biggest thing, right? In that, I would like to highlight, I think we'll go with the video now, is that the Republican Party is not asking to cut benefits. They're declining the Democratic proposal to extend ACA coverage, which is the main thing. This is the main ticket highlight that, especially, Chuck Schumer is advertising that premiums are going to go up double. We need to continue the pandemic funding. And so that's what they're really saying. And there is that thing that we mentioned called the CR, a clean CR. And mind you, the Republicans have numerous times attempted to do the clean CR, which just says everything stays as normal. We basically extend kind of where we're at, but the government stays open. We revisit this discussion later. And if they had done that on October 1st, we'd be looking around sometime here in November where we would see that funding start to cease. Now,
What are they after specifically on this one? Do you know what's the carrot on the stick? Like if they're voting no on the bill, they must have something they want now that's not there, and that's worth to be shut down. I just wonder what it is. What is it?
They're wanting that Affordable Care Act, man, and they're wanting, and like he said, that's $1.5 trillion in additional spending, and we're $37 trillion in debt. I mean, so that's really the biggest thing here, that they're fighting for. So I get it where the Democrats are coming from. We need to do this in order so that insurance premiums don't raise and people are out of health insurance. And I'm sure they could pull up all kinds of data how many people are on it. But again, I think we're kind of in a information hole where we don't know if that prediction is going to be accurate or why it's going to be accurate, right? So some of these things are to be determined. So without further ado, so look at that. So the Post says, in case you missed it, Governor Katie Hobbs says the nearly 900,000 Arizonans getting food stamps should not look to Arizona for help if benefits dry up due to U.S. shutdown. And one guy had commented on this post that was actually my exact thinking was, as I saw 900,000 Arizonans are on EBT.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, like, our population can't be that big. So I looked it up, and that's 1 out of 8 Arizonans is on SNAP benefits. That number just, I don't know, Travis, does that feel off to you? Like, do you feel like
That's-
that many people should be on SNAP benefits?
I don't know. It depends on what perspective you see the city from it, and it's really hard to quantify that number.
Yeah.
But for me, I spend a lot of time driving through the city. I travel for work, and I work in people's homes, so I
Yeah.
get to see a large amount of it. And so I do see the vagrancy, and I do see kind of like a little bit of the homeless population. I'm in anywhere from $1 million neighborhoods homes to low $200,000 homes neighborhoods. So then you can see it. There's quite a bit of poverty here in the state. I don't know if it's 1 in 8. I could tell that number is probably high because there are people that don't necessarily need it, or that are in some way manipulating to increase their overall income. So
Yeah, and funny enough too, I actually did a thing on this when I was getting my master's degree. So, what's interesting is the number of people that are homeless in Arizona. Let me just kind of do this. So, just in Maricopa County alone, they've counted 9,734 people this year experiencing homelessness. In Pima County, which is where Tucson is, it's 2,218. So total, throughout the state is 14,737. Now, granted, I've been homeless before. They probably never knew I was homeless. Well, actually they did, because I was on SNAP benefits. But, you look at that, that doesn't add up, and granted there's more.
No, because we're talking, the numbers you're giving me, 14,000. 14,000, that's what we're talking with vagrancy. You said 9,734 here in Arizona.
Maricopa.
Okay. Right. Now look at this number. 900,000 people are getting food stamps.
Yeah, and granted that's also families that are struggling too. You know what I mean? But when you're talking about like firsthand experience, like I'm driving around, I see a lot of homeless people. Yeah, we do. We have a lot in Phoenix, but that number actually counts for a very small fraction. You know what I mean?
Right, which is what makes the number look even worse, because you think that's 10,000 already. People right there, just they are vagrant that you guarantee qualify, unless obviously felonies or something disqualifies them. I'm updated with the rules and regulations for SNAP anymore.
Yeah.
I know that I was able to get them after having a felony. I don't know if that's the case any longer.
For some, it's still a struggle. I mean, I do intakes, you know what I mean? And I had one guy that came in and couldn't get him because he had a drug charge. That's what DES had told him. And we were able to get him in some classes to help him out. They said if he showed proof of that, he'd be able to get in.
So I did have to do that. I did have to do a 90-day IOP in order for them to give me, but they did eventually. So that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great rule. And
That is a good
I wish the system would get more behind trying to help those that help themselves.
Yeah.
Like EBT now, it's like, oh, people literally will not get a job because they don't want to lose how much stamps they're getting.
Yes, that's what I want to get into. So, and before I do that too, I just want to highlight that almost 50 million in the nation are on SNAP benefits. So the percentage is actually higher for the nation than it is for the state. It's about 1 out of 7 nationally are receiving SNAP benefits. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me to think that many people are on it. And look, I have personal experience with this. I've been on Access. I've been on SNAP, and you have too, right? You've been on SNAP benefits. But I teetered with this. I'm not gonna lie. I teetered with this before. I was like, should I go to work? Because that will eliminate these benefits. Can I afford to pay if I go? And then we're not being productive as a society. There's got to be something different here, right?
Well, yeah, there's other situations too where you can look at, for instance, like me and my wife. Once you're married, you're a single entity. So she, being eligible for food stamps, they look at us as an entirety when they take into account if we're going to get them. And there were times we had to weigh out if she should get a job, because then you have to think, not only are we adding daycare onto there, we have 2 small children, but then if they take away our $600 a month on SNAP, then you know what I mean? By the time you add the 3 together, there's no reason for her to go to work. And it is that fine line. And it also makes it harder to build wealth with a single income family. You know what I mean? So
And that's very true. I'm literally, Travis, I mean, I relate to you 100% because we were exactly in that same position. We haven't gotten married yet because of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we still have access, at least for her and the kids. And if we became jointly united, then that could go away.
And so here's a great example of a government program, despite what side of the aisle you sit on. Its intentions are pure. That's to try to feed people, but look at how much of a hindrance it's become to society itself,
Right.
rather than being a benefit. Where we want to look at it and say, yeah, give them free food, just give it to them, let them eat. We're a big country, we can afford to feed everybody, and Elon Musk's got enough money to give, yada yada yada. But gosh, I keep just
That's okay. I want to highlight, where I'm kind of I will share this personal experience too. Like me and my family are really struggling right now, really hard. And we did lose SNAP benefits. We still have the access, but you know what? I'm not upset about it. Like some people are. I mean, we could literally pull up clips where people are stealing out of other people's shopping carts or blatantly shoplifting at stores because they say their SNAP benefits have ended. I mean, I think that's really the wrong way to happen.
I mean, legitimately, it's what they were doing before. They're used to getting it for free.
Right. But we still can get it legally for free. I mean, we've been using the food bank. Every single church that I've gone to has a food drive. And there's still ways to get food. I mean, St. Mary's has been awesome. I mean, that's a really great place to get food boxes too, at least locally. So there's still options out there, and we have a plethora of food drives out there. You know what I mean? To help, sustain through these times. And so it's not that there's no help out there. There is help. And so it's completely unjustified to go shoplifting or break the law in order to get food when you're just choosing not to use other resources.
Yeah, we struggled, and that's again where you draw the line between the moral line and the money line. And
Yeah.
we had a hard time when I was started to make more money, being like, hey, should we tell them you got a new job, or should we just write it out? Should we just sit back and see? And eventually we made the right decision,
Yeah.
and we just reported it, and we've been straight up. And I think that takes you a long way, but. But it was hard for us to have to weigh that,
Yeah.
And so again, it's a government program that's overreached, and it now is affecting everybody,
Yeah.
and it affects even people that don't get EBT. It affects the employment rate. It affects so many things. So I mean, is it doing more good or bad?
Right. And I think that's, there definitely is good and there definitely is bad, right? I think the bad side of it is that it's inadvertently incentivize, stopping to work, right? Like people don't want to go back to work because they're afraid of losing benefits. And I've been there, Travis. You've been there, Travis. So that's kind of where the bad side that I see it too. I feel like help should still be given, but I would really like to see some change there. And I think Trump is already kind of doing that with the big, beautiful bill. He's basically saying that we're going to look at the demographic of people ages 18 to 64, right? And if they want to keep their benefits, much like in unemployment, and when you get unemployment benefits, you have to actively show you're looking
that you're
for
working
work.
for work. Yeah.
They're doing the same exact thing now for Medicaid and for food stamp benefits. So if you're showing that, you're good, so we're kind of pushing people along. Okay, we can't do this anymore.
What about a system that rather than base it off income, right? So we like to look at the money directly and say, we're going to give you $600 because you make this much and this is what you qualify for in a number amount. What would you think of a system that was based off just hours worked only? So regardless of what you make or how much you make, your ability to get government assistance is based on time spent, not dollars.
What does time have to do with it, though, would be my
Well,
question.
but because then it's the better way to quantify the effort that you're putting in. So you can work 40 hours a week. Let's say we have Andy versus Travis. You could work 40 hours a week at $10 an hour, and you qualify for food stamps or whatever. I may be able to do the same job at $5 more an hour, but I wouldn't qualify because it puts us in a separate bracket. And in the end, you end up ahead because you do qualify and I don't, although we put in the same amount of time and energy.
I like that. So I think there still has to be that financial piece to it, obviously.
Yeah, but
I
think
think the hours things make sense because if I'm minimum wage and I'm working 40 hours a week and I'm not qualifying for benefits, I can't really get another job. You know what I mean? But if I'm 20 hours and I don't qualify, then I could still be looking for more work. You know what I
Right,
mean? Or trying to
exactly.
find a better job, essentially.
And
right?
then I think even in there, a community service for hours would be as like a substitute as well. So you could, if you're short on hours for the week or the month, you can then go volunteer. You can
Yeah.
get signed off hours. It's helping the community, which is the
love
community is
that.
the one paying you back.
Yeah.
So it
Ooh,
just,
that's genius. Yeah.
I think it would be a much
Katie
better.
Hobbs, I hope you're listening.
Yeah, or tag it, but yeah, I mean it would be fun to sit down and do the research on it. It should be about
Yeah.
the time you spent and the energy you spent more than the number itself. Because if we're already trillions of dollars in debt, we can give hundreds and thousands to X, X, and X. I think we can find a better way to help people helping themselves. Again, I think that needs to be the biggest focus. Is
Yeah.
with right now you end up with in a paradigm where it's either you don't do it for yourself and let them, or you do and then you get no assistance and sometimes end up the lesser, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely.
it takes the decision away and makes it to where your only path to success is effort and time spent.
I like that. I like that. And I think that's very well said. I think that's very well said. And, I think one benefit that comes out of this if we do not get EBT programs is, kind of the food drives or the self-help areas where people are willing to give food.
Yeah.
Will definitely increase in strength. You know what I mean? And there's another alternative for people, even more so than we have now. So, yeah, no, I love that, Travis. I mean, that was pretty smart.
And we'll see. I think we'll see too as it goes on with it being cut off and dismantled. We'll see how it affects because, we both on both sides want to look at a situation and we all want to, future trip or predict how it's gonna, how economists are gonna tell you that it's gonna do this and it's gonna boom the housing market and then that's gonna crash and they're gonna tell you this worst case scenario. But I think we'll see some positivity come from it. In the end, there's things that we don't always like as change, and it can feel like overreach from the government.
Yeah.
But there are times that those overreaches end up helping somebody because they have to go now look for a job or put effort in somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they can't go on Pornhub real quick because
I always tell me
because
to
it's
talk about
blocked. Yeah. Well, that's an Arizona thing too, but it's the same thing as it.
Yeah.
You may not realize that it's helping you till you get the effects of it later. You know what I mean? But you can throw your temper tantrum and storm all you want.
Yeah.
But you're still not having any more dessert because your stomach's gonna get sick.
Yeah. No, I think it absolutely makes sense. And you know what? It's hard to be unbiased because I just feel like on the right, it just makes total sense. You know what I mean? What they're doing, trying to pass. I really love doing the show with you, Travis, because there's just, when you watch media stuff, dude, it just paints pictures in like completely inaccuracy. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
people used to mock when Trump would say fake news. But I mean, look at where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's so funny the mockery of that because then they turn around and say the same thing. But
Yeah.
there's like even the news media right now has to be aligned with one way or the other. Which outlet that people are going to watch is defined on the side. If you're watching Fox, you already know.
Yeah.
If you're watching CNN, you already know.
Yeah.
There's like, tell me a major news outlet that seems in the middle, non-biased, and is actually like doing journalism or real news, but it's
Right.
all propaganda, all of it.
Yeah. It really is. And
Even Hollywood's a propaganda machine. Its whole purpose, I think, isn't making profit because they'll be losing millions of dollars on movies and still making them. So what's the motivation there that keeps it going? Who's funding these movies where they're flopping? Disney's got these massive flops, and it's funny because they can hear everything. They can hear what we're saying, that we're unhappy with it. This is a perfect time to bring up Bad Bunny playing in the Super Bowl. Because, listen, you can hear Americans using their voice about this. It's a hot topic. A lot of people are talking about it. It hits close to home. and they can hear us, and it's like they're just ignoring us anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you'll see these things coming for months. Snow White with Rachel Zegler was a really big one. She had said some really kind of mouthy things. The audience got upset. She was kind of basically talking crap on the movie, and the people loved the original, and it had people upset. But it's same kind of example. They heard it for months and months, but they just kept continuing forward, headlong on, making this movie with the actress, despite the outrage, and the movie completely flopped. And they knew it was going to. So what?
There's got to be some type of political affiliation there.
There is.
And I largely blame the media for a lot of what we're seeing with like how it's okay.
Disney
for all
was
the
purchased
transgender.
to become a left-wing lib push. I think. I know it sounds kind of.
No, I don't think that's too radical of a statement. I mean, look at this. Look where we're at. I mean, minors are getting transgender surgeries. And think about it, like not too long ago, I remember watching shows on FX. And all of a sudden, and even like really good shows like Animal Kingdom. Do you ever watch Animal Kingdom?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you see a season go from normal to all kinds of gay content. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, they're
What was wrong with the
literally
formula you
interjecting.
had that was working that got
Yeah.
you to season 3?
And then all these shows started coming out where it's almost like they like are they're part of their mission is to interject gay content. And
Absolutely.
it's like, what is going on? And you see it so much. You even saw it with American Horror Story. They literally had a whole season that was completely gay content. And
I mean,
they lose
American
a
Horror
lot of
Story
viewers
always
from
walked
that.
the line with that. But here's the thing: it was always
crazy.
pertinent to the story, right?
Yeah.
So you can feel the difference when it's just there, or if it's relevant to the story. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If it's part of the storytelling, then it needs to be told, and that's how it goes. But when you make it the whole identity of something, then it looks purposely manipulative.
Yeah.
You know, when you change the whole identity of a classic, you know, that we loved as children, Cinderella, whatever, and you change things in it, it's purely for it's transparent. It's just that's why I say they've just become a propaganda machine, and
Yeah.
it works and it's effective because why it attacks young children, and it's so easy. They just put it in here and there, these little itty bitty things, you know, and they just tick at it. Netflix is really bad too. So you have to be really careful what you let your children consume because they'll get it, you know, even repeating something in their head that they heard can become their mantra or whatever. People are like, oh, she's not going to turn gay from watching a movie. Ain't nobody say that. I'm saying that they pick things up and then again normalize them.
Right. Exactly. And I want to just stand clear that I don't see anything wrong with people being gay or anything like that. But I feel like a lot of what was pushed in the media kind of contributes to the acceptance, like the radicalized acceptance of some of the things that are going on today, especially as the DEI progresses into the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
It's so bad that literally coming into the field as a social worker, I was afraid and I was blinded after doing a lot of like the systems theories and things like that to take a look at people that might have come in as non-binary or queer or these things and just kind of overlook that completely. But in reality is if I'm doing that, okay, there are statistics that prove that people that are gay or queer have much higher suicide rates, right? Than people that aren't. And on top of that is what am I going through mentally to make me want to completely defy societal norms and identify elsewhere? And that should be looked at. I feel like that should be something that's looked at. Like, why are we making those decisions? What were you going through at that time? You know what I mean? That made this appealing to you. What were you seeking to gain as the outcome from transitioning your body? And did you get that outcome? If they already have, right? I think that's a very important conversation.
Yeah.
But a lot of us are afraid to look at that because of how integrated DEI is into our policies today. Now, DEI, I would just want to say, did a wonderful job during, the Martin Luther King, all that stuff, getting to where we're at a point where no longer are policies creating racial disparities. And here's where Kirk pointed out, and I love Kirk for doing this, this is like the biggest inspiration, is that he no longer is like, okay, there's no more policies that are creating racial disparities, but racial disparities still exist. We can find objective data that proves that. But he's saying it's more of a cultural thing, and that when we hyper fixate on racial disparities, then we inadvertently create a culture that feels stuck, that feels like they're in these positions and then doesn't try because they think that these disparities exist. And granted, they do, but they're not at the policy level. You know what I mean? And so now DEI has transmuted itself to a point where they're also going to have that inclusion for the LGBTQ, right?
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because it's not a disparity at that point because it gets complicated. But
The disparity, so I'll explain it, right? So the disparity is like, yes, you will see black communities being kind of like in a position where, yes, they do make less money overall. If you look at statistics and data for that, what Kirk is pointing to is that we all have the same opportunity. We need to get over this barrier that says that you can't accomplish something because this disparity exists. That's all he was trying to preach.
Yeah.
He's not trying to preach white Christian nationalism or things like that. He's just trying to get people to open the door to that concept that there are no policies that are preventing you from doing what you want to do.
Right. And I understand exactly what he's saying, and
Yeah.
that's a good take on it too. What was I going to get at?
That's okay. We took a totally different course, but I think it was good. So let's just do a quick recap here on this episode. I just want to, lay forth the myths and dismantle them, okay? This is not a one-sided thing that's closing the government. It's not the Republicans that are closing the Democrat, and it's not fully the Democrats that are closing down the government. It is they need to come to an agreement together. Democrats want to extend the budget to ensure those covered under the ACA can continue to afford their coverage. That is the real, heartfelt intention of this. And only one Democrat had voted for the continuing the government under current terms right now. So that's where we're at.
And we need 7.
We need
seven votes.
Just 7. You know what I mean? And Senator John Kennedy did a really good job of explaining it. Not all Democrats are bad. You know what I mean? I wanna hone that in for the right, but there are those, like he calls the loon wing, that are really pressing these values. So Republicans are continuously trying to pass the CR. They don't want to spend the extra projected $1.5 trillion for healthcare subsidies. So, that's where we're at. That's the real truth. Stay tuned for more.
Yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hit us up on Facebook. Get us a like and a follow. We'll keep the content coming.
Yeah, and one more thing. We're on YouTube. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. It's always at Carrying the One. So we'd love to see you guys on there.
Bye.